many of y'all have enjoyed the Frozen Marriage series? Anybody so far enjoyed parts of it at least? Last Sunday, if you were here, yes, it got a little awkward, but it was okay. If you don't know what I'm talking about, then you can just go YouTube the message from last week. No, I had an amazing time preaching it, and you'd be surprised the people that came to me and thanked me that for all their years of being in church, they'd never heard a message that was frank and honest and bold like that. And the thing I constantly got was, you are bolder than I would ever be. And so, anyway, maybe that helped y'all out in your marriages last week. I hope so. This week, I'm going to finish this up. I'm going to use a little bit, actually, I'm going to use a lot of a book entitled The 5 Love Languages. Has anybody ever heard of, read, or taken the test? Let me ask you if you've ever read or taken the test. The 5 love languages. We've got like 3 or 4 people in the whole building. That's awesome, because that's something that we can do this week, and it's free. There's this thing, how many of y'all have ever heard of the 5 love languages? Let me see your hand. A lot more people that have heard of it. Here's basically what it is. It's a book, and it was written by a man named Gary Chapman. And Gary Chapman wrote that in each way, every single person wants to be loved in one of 5 ways. There's one of 5 ways that will basically prove to them that someone else loves them. In other words, if you really love me, you would do X for me. Okay? I know love is not something where we do for someone else, but love has reciprocal value. The problem that we have in this love language is this. Each of us are probably going to be different in one of 5 ways. Our spouse will also be different in their love language. And the issue becomes, how do you reconcile the two? So for instance, my wife in one language, she may speak, and I may speak a different language with what I feel is love to me. However, I may think to give love, I give what I would want. The love that I would feel, that's what I give to my wife. The problem is, that's not what she needs to know what love is to her. It's easy for us if we have one way that we like to be loved. We like to love people the same way because it's how we are. I'm going to break this down a little bit to you. I want you to walk with me. The title of today's message, if you want it, is this. It's called Frozen Heart. Melting hearts that are frozen with heat. Okay? With heat. Last week we talked about heat a little bit differently. This week's going to be a little different on the 5 love languages. Love is something that can create a spark, and love will create heat that can melt our frozen hearts. To be honest, within our churches, within our marriages, while we may come and we may sit here and have a great smile on our face, we may kiss our wife in the lobby, we may hold hands a little bit. On top of all that, there are some people right now in this church, y'all are struggling with loving each other the right way. We all face this. There's certain times in our marriage we do great, and there's other times that we just bottom out and it's really, really bad around the house. So I want you to drop the facade. Don't say, well, we're just really, really good. Let's look at ourselves at face value of how we really are today. We're going to go through these 5 languages today, and we're going to talk about them a little bit. I want you to figure out which one you like and which one is love to you. I want your spouse to figure out what is love to them. And then our job will be, and our object will be to leave today and go home and talk and communicate with each other on what it's going to take to start loving each other the way that we want to and need to be loved. This thing called the 5 love languages, we have to learn to speak the right language. There's 3 ways we have to do up front. Number 1, the right language must be recognized. Here's where, if you've never heard and never seen it, you may not even know what your love language is. We have to recognize it. We have to take the time to look inside, ask ourselves, put ourselves through a test, put ourselves through emotions on what is it that I need from my spouse? What is it that I need to feel love and to give love? Do we know what that is? Some of you may know today. Some of you may know. We're going to talk about these 5 languages and just say, let me kind of get these out of the way on what the 5 are, and then we'll break them down individually. There's 5 ways you'll feel love. Number 1, there are words of affirmation. You feel loved when someone affirms who you are. That's the way, when someone tells you, it's basically they're building you up with their words, and that makes you feel loved. Some people have words of affirmation. Some people, they do love through physical touch. Physical touch makes you feel like you are loved. Number 3, acts of service. Someone serving you. Someone doing what you don't like to do for you because they know you don't like to do it. So therefore, maybe one of you absolutely loves acts of service and you hate doing dishes. And when your husband does the dishes, you feel loved like no other time in your life. Right? Maybe it's vacuuming a floor or cleaning hardwoods or something. Acts of service without having to be told. There was a couple in our church the other day, wrote on Facebook, and I won't call them out for it, but y'all may have seen it, wrote on Facebook, came home and the floors were vacuumed and some things were cleaned up, and there was love outpouring on a Facebook post. Yes! I'm not saying that particular person acts of service. Curtis raised his hand, so I'm calling him out on it right now. He's taking the glory. Well, hey, next time she writes in, she's ready to leave you. We're going to post it on Facebook. I'm just kidding. We'll call it out in church, so I'm just kidding. But no, and you know what? Miss Kayla, and we'll call it now. Miss Kayla's her love may not be through acts of service. So while there's maybe one that's domineering in our life, we enjoy probably all of them to a certain extent. But that is for someone who feels love because they're being served, that is something husbands vacuuming the floor can do wonders in your relationship if that's what it's about. Everybody's going to say acts of services now, right? The 4th one may be about receiving gifts. In other words, when someone buys you something, you feel like they loved me enough to think about me when they were away from me, and they just brought me a present. Maybe it was roses, or maybe it was a pair of diamond earrings, or whatever the case may be, some chocolate, just out of the blue. They give gifts. They lavish me with gifts, and that makes me feel loved. And then the 5th one is this. The 5th one is actually the cheapest of them all, probably, and it's quality time. Some people, they don't care if you say I love you so much. They don't care if you do the dishes for them. They don't care if you buy them gifts. It means nothing to them. But the fact that you would set aside any other part of your life to be one-on-one with them makes all the difference. So it's one of these 5 that's going to be your love language. And I encourage y'all today, after we leave, to go look it up online and take the test to figure out exactly what yours are. I'm going to tell you my results. It's not surprising. I already knew what they were before I even started, but I retook it again just to be on the safe side. But I was kind of taken aback by one of the things that I scored on. So number 1, it must be recognized. Number 2, the right language must be defined. Okay, so we've recognized what it is. Now we need to sit down and recognize how do we make that happen within our marriages. If, Miss Denny, if you are, I said Miss Denny. I had a lady in Mississippi, Miss Denny, in our church. So Denny and Miss Tara, sorry. Say Tara's is acts of service to you. Acts of service, okay? And you don't know what it means to serve him. It's very important that we talk about what that means. Maybe his is physical touch. It's important to understand for him what that actually means. Sit down, and this is where it takes communication and maybe spending some quality time together to define what does love in these languages look like for you, and what does it look like for me. And how do we move forward defining exactly what it is to make our homes happier. And number 3, after you define it, after you've recognized what yours is, after you define for each other how you can change and move forward, the last one is this. Now we have to be consistent. If we understand what makes our partner feel loved, why would we not want to do it? You have to be consistent. If we say, oh, you know what, I found out my wife's quality time. Well, this week, I'm going to send the kids off to mom and dad, and we're going to spend an evening together, just the 2 of us. And then the next week, nothing happens again. And the next week, and then a month and 2, 3 months later, you've never spent quality time again. You've recognized it, but you haven't really made a good case of defining it, and you're not being consistent with it. I'll give you an example about speaking languages. Languages are hard, and you have to be consistent to be able to speak them. I went to Mississippi State University from 2007 to 2010. I graduated with a major in political science and business administration and a minor in general business administration. And in that, I had to take a foreign language. And not just a foreign language, I had to take 3 semesters of a foreign language. So 98% of all the kids that I knew were taking Spanish. Well, I like to kind of go against the grain. So I decided I was going to go take French. Yes, your pastor could speak French. Well, I took 3 semesters of French. I'm not going to say I speak it. I took 3 semesters of French. And listen, every day or every other day, you're in French class and you're learning. If any of you have ever taken other classes, you know what a boot is, right? Anybody ever taken another language? You understand what the boot is, and it's crazy. I'm not going to explain it. And so you get this every day, and you're walking through it, and you're learning this language, and every day a little bit more is coming to you, and you start putting words together, and then you put sentences together, and then you start figuring out how to twist the sentences the right way, because you can't just verbatim go word for word from English to French. It doesn't sound right. It's really, really strange. And they have all these roots, and you start flipping them and mixing them. And by the time I got through my 3rd semester of French, I could sit down with the French book and read about 98% of it to you. I could listen to somebody speak French and pick up about 60% of it. I could actually sit there and, if I thought about it, could speak the French language to you in a broken language, but I figured out how to flip everything. And I was pretty excited because I know a little bit of French. I was like, Mom, let's go to Paris. My mom's always wanted to go to Paris. I'm like, I'll go over there and be your interpreter. You pay for my plane trip, I'll go and be an interpreter for you. You know? And so I was so excited about it. I don't remember much of French anymore. Like, I know very, very little. I don't even think I can do the boot for you anymore. That's something you learn like the 3rd day in. You know why? Because ever since I left my 3rd semester of French, I've never picked up another book. I've never listened to anybody speak French. I tuned in one time on Sirius to some Canadian French station for about 3 minutes, and it sounded like he was cussing, so I just turned it and went to another channel. And so you know what's happened there? From when I went from being able to do a lot with French, now I'm very broken and I know very, very little, and I forgot basically about 95% of everything that I learned. You know why? Because I did not consistently place that language at the forefront after those 3 semesters. And when you know a language and you start defining it, you recognize and you get part of it, but you're not consistent in speaking it, you will not retain the language. I know many of you may not understand this or even think this is true and possible, but many times people who are prisoners of war, they may go and speak English for 30 years. They spoke in English and go become a prisoner. And for several years, all they hear is another language, and that's all they're spoken to. You will start to learn that other language, and when they go and finally rescue the people, they have a hard time speaking English, although for 30 years they knew it. You know why? Because they're not using it, they're not consistent with it, and it starts to wither away, and you forget how to use it. Our problem with our marriages and this love language is this. If we recognize it and we define it, but we don't walk out today and actually use it and be consistent with it, we will lose what it means to our partner to truly love them the way they need and want to be loved. So let's walk through this. The Bible says this in Proverbs chapter number 24. I think these verses speak so loudly to what we're talking about today. Although it's not necessarily talking about a marriage in a sense, you can take it that way, I think it just really speaks to how we're to approach what I'm preaching today about learning your spouse and your partner. Proverbs 24, verse number 3 and 4 says this. Through wisdom a house is built. Through wisdom, and gained knowledge, that innate ability to understand. It's basically through true understanding, a house is built. And by this understanding, it is established. So wisdom and understanding and knowing our partner in life, it doesn't just build the house, it sustains it and it establishes it forever. By knowledge, the rooms are filled with all precious and pleasant riches. In other words, the more we get to know about our spouse and the more we open up on what it means to love within our home and to understand what makes our partner tick and how to love them and them to love us, the more we understand about each other, the more our house is built, the more it's established, and actually the more pleasant every part of our marriage and our relationships will be. So today what I'm asking is this. I want you to walk out today researching yourself, figuring out, recognizing what your love language is, recognizing how it needs to be defined, and going with your partner, getting together with your partner, and figuring out exactly how you'll be consistent with it. That's what I hope today as we walk out. But let's start walking through the 5. Number one, I want you to think about this. As I'm preaching it, without taking the test, you can think about what it is you like. Number 1, words of affirmation. Words of affirmation is described like this: reassuring words, words of thankfulness, words of empowerment, words of encouragement. Affirmation can actually make people fearless. I'll give you an example. Have y'all ever seen a fight maybe fixing to break out in school? You have like maybe two guys that are fighting over a girl, right? And they're fixing, and maybe there's a ring of people that surround them, and man, they're walking around the ring, they're ready to fight, and it's all over this girl. And all of a sudden, that girl will call out to one of them, "Get him, Bobby, you can whoop him." And it's on, Bobby's going after him. You know why? He just got affirmation from the little girl. He's going to take that man down. That word of affirmation in that moment when teachers are running high and everything's surrounding it the way it is, and all of a sudden he gets that word, it's on. You know why? Because when you're affirmed in what you feel is the right way, that's empowering, it'll make you fearless. Now, old Bobby just got his tail whooped for jumping him, but he don't care. He'll do it again tomorrow if somebody affirms that he can. These words of affirmation. So think about this in a marriage. Let's say your husband today, he needs words of affirmation. He needs to know that you appreciate him getting up at 3 o'clock in the morning, 2 o'clock in the morning, the 70 hours you worked last week to supply for their home. He needs to know that you appreciate that. And maybe he's someone that's built up by words, and all it can take is, "Baby, I want you to know, I know you're tired. I know it's a long, long week, but we are so thankful as a family that you're willing to do that." Listen, it will make him jump 5 feet tall going out the next day. You know why? Because if he's somebody, his words of affirmation are what makes him feel loved, he will walk out with a fresh sense that he is not being taken for granted. Words of affirmation. Telling your wife that she's beautiful. Maybe your wife has words of affirmation as what she needs. Telling her she's beautiful. Telling her, "You are the best mother I've ever seen. You are the best mother to our kids. I could not ask for a more endearing mom. I could not ask for someone to love their kids and their husband as much as you. Thank you." Maybe it's a simple, I walk into the house and say, "I can see you put a lot of time into the house and it's clean today. I want to say thank you. I love you for that." Those words of affirmation will make her feel empowered, and it's encouragement that flows through. The website itself says this about words of affirmation: actions don't always speak louder than words. If this is your love language, unsolicited compliments mean the world to you. In other words, they don't have to come up to you and ask you, "Do I look pretty today?" Maybe before that, preempt them and say, "Baby, you look gorgeous today." Unsolicited, right? Hearing the words, "I love you," are important, but hearing the reasons behind that love will send someone's spirit skyward. But someone who has words of affirmation, here's the flip side. Insults will leave them shattered. They are not easily forgotten. Kind, encouraged, positive words are truly life-giving. Someone whose words of affirmation build them up. You also have to realize, men and women, words of insult will bring them down further than others. When words hold power in our life, it's okay. You say, "Well, that doesn't sound like a good love language." No, it's perfectly fine. We have to recognize what affirms them and realize if words are powerful to affirm, it does not take much to tear down. We have to realize that within our relationships and within our homes. Words of affirmation. Number 2, physical touch. Yes, I heard Judah Smith say one time his gifts for the love language was touch me again, and touch me one more time. I kind of like that. Physical touch, though, this is about more than just sexual chemistry. This is about more than just a physical relationship. Physical touch can be simple things like holding hands in public. Someone running your hands through your hair. Touching your cheek, patting your leg. Just very simple, and it's very outward and very public. Some people, just to know that you'll reach over and grab their hand while you're walking through the mall and touch them, or put your arm around them unsolicited. Or when you're sitting on the couch, instead of laying down and flopping across them, actually laying down and pulling them in close and putting your arm around them. makes a difference. I see the way people laugh. We must have a lot of floppers on the couch around here. I see fingers pointing. This is not the time to call out other people's sins. This is a time of building each other up. Wow, yay. But you know how it is. We like to go and flop on the couch, right? We love it. Us men, we love it. But maybe instead of doing that, it's to go sit down right beside them. Invade their personal space. Grab their hand up without being asked. You'd be surprised what invading personal space can do. My wife and I, Friday night, we went to eat in Asheville for basically our Valentine's Day dinner, and we went to the mall first. We had about an hour and a half to kill, and so we went to the mall, and we really didn't want anything. We were just there just to kill time. So we did what I love to do. I love people watching. It is like a spectator sport. It really is. I get all the enjoyment out of just watching crazy people walk by. It's funny, right? So we're looking for a place to sit. Well, it was kind of crowded a little bit. There weren't many places. Well, there was this little, it was about the size of a love seat sitting in there, and there's a guy sitting on the end, and there's basically enough space for one person. And I tell Lindsay, I'm like, Lindsay, there's our spot. She's like, but only one person can fit. I said, oh no, we can fit two. She's like, you can't. I said, yeah. I said, here's the thing. People hate having their privacy invaded. Let's go both squeeze in there and sit down. You give him 2 minutes, he'll be gone. Sure enough, we go, we squeeze in. I got my arm around her, just sitting there. He's playing on his phone. I can see him cut his eyes a couple times. After a minute, he stands up, just kind of walks away. I'm like, see? There we go. Got our space. It's all you. Now scoot down a little bit. But next time, instead of sitting on the couch on opposite ends of the couch from each other, why don't you squeeze up close to them if there's someone who wants that physical touch? If there's someone who wants that physical touch. Website describes it as this. This language is not just about the bedroom. A person whose primary language is physical is not surprisingly a very touchy person. Hugs, pats on the back, holding hands, thoughtful touches on the arms, the shoulder, the face. They can all be ways to show excitement, concern, care, and love. Physical presence and accessibility are crucial, while neglect or abuse can be unforgivable and destructive. Physical touch fosters a sense of security and belonging in any relationship. Makes you feel wanted if this is your love language. Physical touch. Number 3, moving on. Some people's love language is acts of service. Working on things that make your partner happy with them or for them. For instance, I talked about washing dishes with an act of service. It's very simple things like that that go a long way towards gesturing of free will to do what makes your partner happy. It doesn't take a lot. It doesn't take much. Maybe it's your husband. He loves you when the house is clean when he comes home. Some people don't care. Some people are like, it's the house. Some people like it to be clean. So what's the act of service that would make him feel loved when he walks in and the house is clean? You say, well, you just spoke that to the women. We'll get to the men in a second. Act of service. Act of service. On the flip side, men, maybe it's just walking into the room and saying, honey, I'm going to rub your feet for you. Just stay right there. Act of service. You are serving something that the other person would want so that they can be relaxed and can let the cares of the world go by. Acts of service. Acts of service. This is actually, believe it or not, this is my number 1 language. Acts of service. It's my number 1. And this goes even further. We talk about this within relationships, but this actually goes further than that. And I'll give you, for instance, some of y'all have probably wondered why I talk about serving in the church, right? I've always asked, like, where are you serving? What is it that you can do to serve? Is it teaching young kids? Is it working in the nursery? Something simple. Find somewhere to serve. Because in my brain, acts of service means you love them. And so when I see people that are willing to serve within the church somewhere, it reassures and reaffirms to me that they are in love with the church. So this goes beyond just our personal. This is how we view everything in the world. If you love it, you will fight for it. You will devote time to it. You will serve it. And that's where my personal number 1 love language is acts of service for me. People that don't want to do anything for something, I think they don't really love it. That's just the way I feel about it. It's not wrong. It's just who I am. I probably am not the only person in here today that has acts of service that would be their number 1 thing. And it's okay. Within the marriage, though, my wife has to understand that when she does something that I don't ask her to do, knowing that it makes me happy when it comes to serving me, that is when I feel the best that she loves me. My wife is a words of affirmation person. She loves words of affirmation. She likes to know that she's beautiful. She likes to know that what she does matters. She likes to know that I recognize the service that she did. So here's where it ties in. When she does a service and I don't recognize it, although inside I may be 100% happy with it, I've torn her love language down, although she was building mine up. Do you understand this a little bit today? Hope you're catching this, because I want y'all to go home and have better marriages because of it. Website describes it as this. Gary Chapman says it like this. Can vacuuming the floors really be an expression of love, Curtis? Absolutely. Anything you do to ease the burdens of responsibilities weighing on an acts of service person will speak volumes. The words he or she most want to hear, let me do that for you. Give me some iced tea, baby. Okay. I'll move on. Laziness, broken commitments, and making more work for us tell speakers of this language that our feelings don't really matter. Creating that extra burden. Finding ways to serve speaks volumes to the recipient of these gifts, these acts. Number 4, acts of service, go to number 4. Receiving gifts. When someone gives you something, you feel that now they love you. This is not a gold digger. This is just one of the love languages that we have. When you receive a gift, you feel like someone loves you. Some people you can say all day long, baby, you're beautiful. Okay, don't care. But you bring her home some diamond earrings, business is going to pick up around the house. Because they feel like you sacrifice to supply them with something. Therefore, you must love them, and that reassures their love inside. I'm going to be honest with y'all, 100%. My gift, receiving gifts, love language, on the scale of 0 to 10, was 0. I don't care. Like, I'm a person, I don't care if someone buys me anything or not. It doesn't matter to me. I don't think that has anything to do with love. It's just a personal thing. It means nothing to me. No, it doesn't mean nothing to me. Let me rephrase that. As far as in love, it doesn't mean that you love me. Some people take it as, well, that obviously means they love me to buy me something. This is also why you can walk through a mall and see a 60-year-old ugly man, ugly as dirt, walking with a 30-year-old bombshell. You know why? Maybe her gift and love language was receiving gifts, and he's got a little bit of money, and he bought her anything she wanted. Right? And so that's how this can happen, because he's learned to speak the language that she is wanting. So receiving gifts, for me, it means nothing. But for other people, it may mean the world. But here's one of the problems with that. Because gifts mean nothing to me and they don't have sentimental value. I'm not a sentimental person on sticks and stones. I really don't care about stuff like that. But it also affects and judges my ability to give gifts. I am a terrible gift giver. Some people can go buy stuff and it is like, where did you think of that? That is amazing. I am horrible. I want to tell y'all a little story about how bad of a gift giver I am. And I'm going to tear myself down in this just a little bit. Okay? My wife and I had gotten married. It was in our first year. And it was her birthday. And right after, and so this was in 2006, February 22nd, 2006. I did not know what to get her. You realize, we just got married. There's probably a million things I could get her. But my brain doesn't care about gifts. There's nothing sentimental to them, so I don't really care. So, I mean, I care, but I don't. You know, it's not love involved in the gift. So I'm like, what am I going to get my wife? What am I going to get my wife? What am I going to get my wife? Well, I had heard her make mention that sometimes while we were at church, there were TV shows that were on that she couldn't watch. So ding, 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 ding. I found something I was going to buy her. Her first birthday, I bought her a TiVo. Yeah. I bought my wife a TiVo for her first birthday after we were married. She would be so embarrassed if she was telling this story right now. I bought her a TiVo, probably the worst gift you could ever buy, because it ended up recording all my sports shows. It was kind of my gift after the end of about a month or so. It was a bad gift, and looking back, it's horrible to even think about it, but it had just come out. It was the end thing, and she had said she kind of wanted to watch these shows, and there was no way for us to record them, so that was a great gift, right? I thought about, I'm trying to say, you told me, I'm going by what you said, and I bought my wife a TiVo. Yeah. sadly. And because I don't view gifts as having this huge meaning, unfortunately, I don't view giving them as having huge meaning in that sense all the time. But some people receiving gifts and the thoughtfulness behind it is all they're looking for. Like, they can get a handmade, handwritten card and they will weep for 3 days over it. I don't get that, you know? It's just not me. It's okay if you're that way. But my gift giving, if I ever get you a gift and you're like, this sucks, it's my problem, I deal with it. Here's what Gary Chapman says about this. Don't mistake the love language for materialism. It's not. The receiver of gifts thrives on the love, thoughtfulness, and effort behind the gift. If you speak this language, the perfect gift or gesture shows that you are known, you are cared for, and you are prized above whatever was sacrificed to bring the gift to you. In other words, someone who's receiving gifts as their love language, they recognize more than just the gift. They recognize the thought and the care and the absolute time it took to make the gift happen. That's what they're looking at. They're speaking to them. A missed birthday, anniversary, or a hasty, thoughtless gift would be disastrous, like a TiVo. So would the absence of, thank God hers isn't receiving gifts, we've been divorced already. So would the absence of everyday gestures. Gifts are visual representations of love and are treasured greatly. Does your wife still have the first card you gave her 37 years ago before you ever went on a date? Does she keep every little thing you've ever bought? Will she not throw the vacuum cleaner away because you bought it one time out of the blue 27 years ago and they don't even make bands for it anymore? The bristles are worn off of it. There's nothing works on it, but we got to keep it because you bought it. You bought that for me one time. Probably receiving gifts is one of her love languages that's up near the top. Receiving gifts. Number 5. This is the last one. Some people speak the language of quality time. This one's probably the toughest because, band, you can make your way up and just start playing softly. This is the toughest, and here's why. Gone are the days of 40-hour work weeks, right? Everybody that works a public job, you understand this more than anybody else. Used to, 40-hour work weeks was what people had. They work a 9 to 5. Those days are gone anymore. Now it's 12-hour days, 10-hour days, 4 on, 4 off, 3 on, 3 off, 12-hour shifts, 16-hour shifts. Everything is just haywire. And the one thing that each day, and I feel the same way sometimes, even with my job, with the church and everything else, the one thing I feel like I don't always have enough of, that I cannot reproduce more of, is time. Isn't it the one thing where every day we wish we could wake up and have actually more time than what we do? Wake up sometimes at 4:30 in the morning. It's dark. It's black. Jesus is not even up. And I get up and I go to work. He's not. He's not. It's like an hour later, the sun starts coming on. I'm like, there's God. And I get up and you go to work and you get off at 5 o'clock in the afternoon and you come home. And when it was kind of more in the December, November time frame, it's dark when you get up and it's dark when you get home and you've missed all day and you work inside and you never see the sun. And when you come home, because it's dark and kids have homework and they got school, before you know it, an hour in, they're in bed and you're sitting there sleepy, flopped across the couch. And we just feel like we don't have enough time. And in doing this repetitive cycle, there's some of us that our love language is time. And they don't care. The partner doesn't care if you buy them a big gift. The partner doesn't care if you walk in and say, hey, the house looks great. They actually want you to turn off the TV, put your cell phone aside, sit down beside them and just listen to talk to them. And I'll be honest, that's hard sometimes as a man. Let's be honest. There's some days I take everything as complaining. I'm like, I got up at 4:30. I worked all day. I listen to other people complain at work all day long. I got to come home and, yeah, you're kind of happy, but I think there's some complaining involved in this, you know. And it's hard to spend that quality time. And then you start getting sleepy, and before you know it, you pass out while they're in the middle of a sentence. Kind of happen. And they're not looking for to spend any money. They're not looking for you to take massive amounts of time out of your day. Sometimes it can be just 5 or 10 minutes of sitting down one-on-one, looking at them across the table, holding each other's hands, putting your arm around them on the couch, just saying, how was your day? And it's free, and yet can be so hard to spend. Quality time. Gary Chapman wrote this about it. In the vernacular of quality time, nothing says I love you like full, undivided attention. Being there for this type of person is critical, but really being there with the TV off, fork and knife down, chores and tasks on standby, cell phone put away. This makes your significant other feel truly special and loved. If you're always distracted, you're postponing dates, the failure to listen can be hurtful and devastating in a marriage. Quality time, I like this, means quality conversation and quality activity. Quality conversation and quality activity. Quality time. I don't know today what your love language is. If you're married or if you're single, it's a great day to figure it out. I would challenge you, maybe some of y'all know. Is there anybody in the place that would raise their hand and says, I know what my number one would be? Raise your hand up. If you, not saying which one, just which one. I know what my number. We have about 5 or 6, 7 in the building. Not many at all. Very few. That's good because today we may go home as couples. This is what I challenge you to do as couples or as singles, to go home and actually do a little research on it and find out for yourself what yours is. And sit down and talk about it, because maybe some of the struggles within our marriages are because we're not speaking the right language to each other. And realize folks, that what language you speak will be the one you want to speak to your spouse, but it's probably not the same language your spouse speaks. For instance, it would be very hard if my wife receiving gifts was her love language, and that'd be 0 for me. I would have to really understand, I have to stretch outside of my comfort zone to please her and to make sure she feels loved, because it's so far removed from what I naturally would think and do. But it would be very easy for me to do something for her. Act of service. Hey baby, I'll watch the boys. You go shopping. I'll do the laundry. Like many times I'll go to my wife and sometimes I'll be like, listen, I'll take care of the laundry. She's like, no, I got it. No, baby, I'll take care of it. No. Well, why? I feel like you're saying that the laundry is not good enough. I'm like, babe, I'll do it. So understand in working with each other that if they're trying to speak their language to you, it doesn't make it wrong. It's just, that's how they feel, so they're trying to exude that out. But in that, we have to recognize that that's not the language my wife speaks. My wife could care less if I did the laundry for her. She wants to know and affirm that I love her and that she's beautiful, because she likes words of affirmation, and that she's doing a great job, and that she's the best mom. And the kid, yes, he's coughing and croupy, but it's not your fault. You're not a bad mom because of it. That's my wife. And we have to learn to speak those languages back and forth, or else inside of our homes, we're going to have conflict that's basically unnecessary. So through these weeks, I've tried to portray a home through this series called Frozen. The fact that we've got battles. Let's be honest, we got battles, we got struggles. We all think differently. We fight battles differently. We look at the worldviews differently. But hopefully something that I've said has caused your home to become a little bit stronger through what I've said. And if it hasn't yet, maybe as you implement some of the ideas and the things I've talked about, it will get better. I believe as a church, we will never be stronger as a church than the foundations of the homes that represent the church. And everything I've tried to speak to you about for the last 6 weeks now on marriage and relationships and finding the right one and building a marriage the right way and learning how to forgive and work through problems within a marriage, whatever the case may be that I spoke about, it's all to try to help us solidify foundational truths of our homes so that our church can be stronger, because internally your homes are stronger. So as we stand all over the building this morning, here's what I would ask each of you to do. I'm going to challenge you today. I'm going to challenge you. Almost everybody in here has Facebook. Here's what I want to challenge you to do. I want to challenge you to go home, look up the 5 love languages quiz. Take it as a couple. Individually take it, and then sit down and talk about it as a couple. Go onto our Thrive Church Facebook page and write a status saying, I found out today I I am, quality time, acts of whatever your love language is. Maybe together y'all can write as a couple. I don't care how it happens, but speak it, define it, recognize what you are, and then sit down and start talking about how you can love each other through those acts. And listen, here's the honest truth behind this. And I'm done with this. Unfortunately, if we don't recognize how our partner is to be loved and change and love them the way they deserve to be loved, unfortunately, someone else might. 100% wrong. It's not right. I'm not standing up here justifying it. You can work through your marriage. You can work through your problems. Y'all can solve everything. But learn to love your spouse and partner in the way they want to be loved and what makes them feel loved. And we're not going to have as much temptation in our lives. If you have a happy home, happy wife, happy life. Right? Just big yes, sirs. No doubt. I want to pray today over all of our couples, and then we'll be dismissed, and we'll see you next Sunday. We're going to talk about some direction and vision for the church next Sunday, some of our next steps. But I want to pray over all the couples in the church today. I want y'all to enjoy each other. I want y'all to have fun, have great marriages, do life together, have fun together. You know what? Maybe you're sitting here saying, well, I'm just kind of part of the church. One of the best ways to jump in is just get involved with what we're doing. We're going tubing next Sunday. If there's any way you can make it, I don't care if you're a first-time visitor, been here 27 times, been here since the first Sunday we opened, find a way to go. You say, well, I'm not about to tube. Well, just go with us and talk. We normally form a band of people up at the fence, and we just stand around and talk. Spend time together as a church. Spend time together as a couple. Learn each other as a church. Learn each other as a couple. There's a lot of similarities that go through with how you can serve work within a church. But I ask you today as couples, let's build up within the church so that God can be glorified. Because one thing that's happening in this world is homes are falling apart. And I believe that if the church can figure it out and talk to God and have God strengthen our homes, and we be the one stalwart where homes are rising up, where everybody can say, you know what? Everybody else's marriages are falling apart, but those Christian people I know, theirs is getting stronger. They have something that I don't have. I need that. And that's when we'll start changing the world. I love you, Lord. And I'm thankful for all these couples that represent the church, the sacrifice, the love, the service that they do, God. I am so thrilled and honored to be a part of this church and to serve alongside these people. I pray as our couples go home today, refreshed and renewed, and have the sense, God, to recognize what their love language is, to sit down and talk about and define how that's going to look moving forward, and God, to be consistent with it day after week, after month, after year. Let us build our homes up, God, through the power and the foundation that you've given us through your sovereign Son showing what unconditional love is. God, may we be restored and refreshed and renewed within our marriages like never before. It's in Jesus' wonderful name. Amen.